Well, thank you. I know I'm standing between you and lunch, so I try to not to go too long. And then also talking about animal source foods makes you ready for the lunch. Um, so thank you to Steve and Rod for the opportunity to talk about and including animal source foods as one of the topics for this roundtable. My name is Payam Vahmani. I'm an assistant professor in the animal science department at UC Davis. And I'm going to be covering the, about the importance of animal source foods as like a nutrient supply in our food supply, and what are the opportunities in terms of a nutritional enhancement of different types of animal source foods like eggs, meat, and dairy, and finally with some conclusions and recommendations. I'm going to time myself so I cannot make sure I don't go over time. Okay. Well, I hate the term animal protein for a reason. I like animal source foods. I use animal source foods to describe these for a reason, because, they don't just provide protein. If you look at the contribution of animal source foods to the nutrient supply in the US, you realize they provide more than just protein. They play a significant role in other essential nutrients such as B vitamins, vitamin A in a preformed form. And if you look at vitamin B12 in our food supply, almost all the vitamin B12 comes from animal source foods. That's the food supply, not the supplements, not the vitamin mineral supplements that people take, of course. So that's the point I wanted to emphasize on in terms of why we call these animal source foods, not just animal protein. And then, as you know, the commodity animal source foods in the US, they produce in intensive production systems. These systems are very efficient on a large economic scale, resulting in lower price for the consumers. And one of the advantage of benefits of producing, at least at the finishing stage for the animal source foods in the intensive system, it's that we can use a lot of byproducts. We can manage the nutrition and diet, and we can have a storage capability to use a lot of byproducts or food waste from the agri-food industry. So what do I mean by upcycling? So basically it means taking the ingredients that would have otherwise been thrown out and turning them into nutritious animal source foods for people, especially for ruminant species like cattle. Those byproducts like crop residues, milling byproducts, distillers grain, almond hulls, you name it. They make up a huge, significant part of the ration, especially for ruminants, up to 40% when it comes to beef cattle and dairy cows. So they have playing a big role in upcycling nutrients and byproducts. So let's talk about a nutritional enhancement. What do I mean by that? So there are two different ways or approaches for nutritional enhancement: post-harvest and pre-harvest. So I'm going to start with post-harvest approaches first. So basically, adding any nutrients of concern, the nutrients of concern for underconsumption, like the best example is vitamin D. Adding vitamin D to milk has been done for a long time in the US and many other countries. Having dairy products with different fat content, because you're providing fat. When it comes to fats, saturated fatty acids or saturated fats, solid in room temperature, they are known as a nutrient of concern for overconsumption in the US. So any post-harvest approach that you reduce the fat or excess fat, especially for the meat, that would be a sort of a nutritional enhancement. Or we have other examples of adding different vitamins, and omega-3 fatty acids, for example. And those are not limited to, of course, animal source foods. It can be done on like different types of fruit juice as well. So these are post-harvest approaches that, you see. When it comes to meats, there is post-harvest opportunities for cut-specific labels. And I see that as like a low-hanging fruit opportunity for highlighting those different cuts, because in terms of the nutrient content for populations at risk of deficiencies. If you look at beef muscles, not all cuts or meat cuts are created equal. For example, in the case of beef, the iron in a serving of beef can, depending on where it comes from, but what part of the animal, it can range from 8 to 18% of the daily value or the daily requirements for that nutrient. So I think there is a huge opportunity there for cut specific labels for the consumers, depending on their requirements, or if there are specific deficiencies, we can use this opportunity, which is not being used right now. So that's another point I want to emphasize on, that there is variation and there's opportunities there for highlighting the different nutrient levels. So I'm going to spend the rest of my talk focusing on pre-harvest approach for enhancing the nutritional value of animal source foods. So this means there was any methods or approaches that can be done on live animals. So then you end up with a product with different nutrition or enhanced product. So, and the example there are different ways of doing that. It could be through feeding and nutrition of the animal, or it could be through genetic selection. So if you look at the beef, for example, if you go back to 1989, like there were 6 cuts of beef that qualified for lean label, as according to the USDA guidelines, like less than 10% fat. But if you look at 2013, we have way more cuts that are qualified for the lean label. And same goes for the pork. Our pork today the pork that's been produced in the US is on average 40% leaner than what's produced in 1970. So this example, it shows you how, the progress in terms of producing leaner carcasses over time with use of genetic selection. So another pre-harvest approach is using feeding and nutrition. I'm sure you have heard the phrase, you are what you eat. So basically what we feed not only impact the growth and performance of animals, but also it can impact the nutrient composition of their products. And so nutrition is a great opportunity there to manipulate the nutrient composition of animal source foods. So when it comes to animal nutrition, the potential for nutritional enhancement differs depending on the product. So in general, excreted simple products such as eggs and milk are easier to manipulate through animal nutrition or feeding compared to meats. Because like for meat, when it comes to multiple tissue-based products such as meat, they are more challenging because they're less homogeneous and their composition can change from muscle to muscle, animal to animal. So using animal nutrition, egg and milk is much easier to use that approach compared to meats. And then in terms of different nutrients, responsiveness to dietary manipulation, fat content and fatty acid composition is the most responsive to dietary manipulation in all the species. And then vitamins to some extent, especially fat-soluble vitamins, and some trace minerals, specifically selenium and iodine, are very responsive to what you feed to the animals. You can change the level in their products. But when it comes to protein or other minerals or vitamins, it's difficult to change those in the animal products by changing their diet. So the best example and perhaps the most successful one is when it comes to nutritional enhancement, pre-harvest approach through animal nutrition would be omega-3 enriched eggs, which are produced from hens-fed diets containing flaxseed. Flaxseed is a good source of omega-3 fatty acids, specifically alpha-linolenic acid. And they are currently marketed as value-added food items in several supermarket chains. So one of the advantage of the omega-3 eggs, you feed them a source of alpha-linolenic acid, a simple omega-3 fatty acids, but you get the egg that is enriched with DHA, which is a type of omega-3 you find in fish oil, which is a nutrient of concern for underconsumption, especially among developing children. Is important for brain development, vision. It has so many functions. And then the hens are very good in converting the form of omega-3 in flaxseed to the form that you find in fish oil. So that's one good example of nutrition enhancement through nutrition of animals. So for eggs, the enrichment potential is not limited to omega-3 fatty acids or fats. There is vitamin and mineral enriched eggs as well in some countries, including in the US. We have some brands that with enhanced vitamin and contents in the eggs. So basically, when you feed layers or hens with extra amount of vitamins and trace minerals above their requirements, they deposit more in their eggs. So, for example, for vitamin A, the potential is that we can increase it up to twofold compared to or 2 times compared to the regular eggs. And vitamin A, E, and D, those are fat-soluble vitamins, are easier to enhance compared to B vitamins in eggs. Among trace minerals like iodine and selenium, they can be easily enriched to up to 3 to 4 in the eggs by just feeding more supplements to the hens. And in some Asian countries, you will find selenium or iodine enriched eggs. So when it comes to pre-harvest approaches, and other species like pork, as I said, fat content and fatty acid composition respond very well to dietary manipulation. And there has been attempts to enrich pork with omega-3 fatty acids. So for example, we did studies with pigs, feeding them 5% flaxseed for 11 weeks. As I said, flaxseed is a good source of omega-3 fatty acids. So when you look at the pure meat, like very lean meat, the amount of omega-3s was we got it to 116 milligrams per serving. To be qualified for a source claim, you need at least 300 milligrams per serving. So you cannot reach that with just pure meat. When we included with meat plus silver skin and seam fat or intermuscular fat, that we could reach to the level of 750 milligrams per serving of pork, which qualifies for a source claim. When you add a quarter inch of back fat, that jumps to the 1600 milligrams per serving, which is very significant. So, but the problem is, many consumers, they trim the back fat. You really don't want it's a waste of time if you just enrich it in the back fat. So, but there is a potential to use those back fat and lean meat for the processed product like sausages to generate omega-3 enriched pork, and there are commercial products like that, especially in China. So in beef, We try to do that in beef, like enriching omega-3 fatty acids in beef. So if you look at the retail beef from grain-fed beef, there you get 32 milligrams of omega-3 per serving in lean beef. And then when you grass-fed, obviously it has more because of, fresh or forage is a good source of alpha-linoleic acid, which is an omega-3 fatty acid. When we feed flax to the beef, so we did an experiment feeding flax seeds, 15% of diet for 140 days in beef, we could reach to 120 milligrams. But if you compare that to our pig study with the same like lean level, like leanness, like a 5% fat, the amount of omega-3s that we got pork was much higher, 700 milligrams per serving compared to 120. So the reason for that is the rumen microbes. In ruminants, they don't like unsaturated fatty acids. They convert the oils to saturated fat. So even if you add them a lot of oil or omega-3s to enrich the meat, the rumen microbes will convert them to saturated fatty acids. That's why it's very difficult to do this with beef compared to pork. And that's because of the process called rumen biohydrogenation. So despite that biohydrogenation in the rumen, there is potential to reduce the saturated fat in ruminant products such as dairy milk. And like we did an experiment with goats, and by feeding GMO high oleic soybean oil, we were able to reduce the saturated fatty acids in milk fat and increase the healthy monounsaturated fatty acid like oleic acid, which is the main fatty acid in olive oil by that supplement. So there is potential to enhance the fat composition. And there are other novel approaches like gene editing. There is potential there, but there are gene edited animals are strictly regulated in the US. They basically treated like drugs, effectively blocking the path for their approval. It's regulated by FDA, whereas when it comes to plant-based foods, it's regulated by USDA. So there is potential, but it's not feasible at this time. And then other approaches like exposing pigs to UV light can increase the vitamin D in the pork, and adding cobalt supplements, which is one of the precursors for B12 synthesis, to the diet of ruminants can enrich their products with B12. So, but right now, overall conclusion is that animal nutrition is the most direct and practical approach for nutrition enhancement, but it is very limited to the specialty niche products at the moment, like the egg examples that I told you. If we wanted to apply for the other products, there has to be, or for the commodity level, there need to be a mechanism for sharing the profits along the value chain. The producers will not incur added costs for specialty feeds if they will not be paid a premium. So again, to make this happen, we need to come up with the ways to be able to determine the quantified levels of specific nutrients that we want to enrich, and there should be a mechanism for the producers to get the premium for enriching for enhanced products. With that, I will be happy to take any questions. Thank you.